Hello everyone and welcome back, and as promised we have another death battle review today. So, did they get it right or did they fuck it up? Well, let's take a look and find out. You may find the results surprising.
Sorry, Momo. You're just too little.
Little? Who are you calling a pipsqueak, you stupid hairless kid?
Nobody?
I'll show you!
Well, so Death Battle finally got something right for once. And I'm being serious this time, I'm not being sarcastic. For once, Death Battle actually got it right. This is definitely one of their better episodes. While I wouldn't say this is redemption for Death Battle, at least they managed to get it right. While there is still some things wrong with this episode, and I'll get into it, I will give Death Battle credit where credit is due, especially in regards to the fact that I'm very happy that for once, Death Battle actually listened and didn't use any bullshit information from Legend of Korra. So I really want to give Death Battle a sincere round of applause for that, and I think all of you should too. That alone immediately elevates this episode above Gara versus Toph, because they actually had the balls to use info from Legend of Korra, which was the dumbest thing that they could have possibly done. And I'm so happy that Death Battle finally listened for once, because I was ready to just explode into a rant at the first sight of any single bit of information from Legend of Korra. So good job on that one. And as for this matchup, well, unfortunately, like I predicted and many others, Edward was fucked. He didn't really have very many advantages here. While he was capable of being somewhat even with Aang when using his full power, once Aang went into the Avatar state, that immediately became invalidated. Outside of that, Aang pretty much had the advantage in every other category, so I will admit this is a little bit of a mismatch, which is definitely one of the weaker elements of this fight. However, the analysis was pretty damn good. They did a good job going over the feats and explaining each character, and like I said, I cannot express enough praise for only using Avatar information and not Legend of Korra. It is very refreshing to see that, because Death Battle seems like the type of retards that would be dumb enough to do so. However, though, the most disappointing part, at least for me, was the fight itself. Again, with the sprite animation, I'm sorry, Death Battle, it needs to stop. And don't tell me that this can't be done 3D, because I know for a fact there are 3D models for Aang out there. Growing up, I had a Avatar: The Last Airbender game on GameCube. I know for a fact there are 3D models of Aang out there. And some of you might be saying, well, there's probably no 3D models of Edward, so that's probably why it wasn't possible. Even if that was the case, just make one. As I said in the last review, Death Battle does have the resources to create their own 3D models, so why not just do it? Again, for Christ's sake, if I have the ability to do it, then so do they. And I'm a puny channel with barely any resources. They're a large, multi-million company with an astronomical amount of resources and manpower at their side. It can be done. This would have been better if it was 3D, because the sprite work just didn't work here. There were times where it looked fine. I will admit there were parts of this fight that looked good, but there were just parts that looked really, really ugly and awkward. The water bending looked like absolute shit in this. So I do wish that Death Battle would stop with the sprite animations. To me, whenever Death Battle uses sprite animations, unless there is a Death Battle where 2D would make logical sense given the characters, like if they both came from a 2D universe, to me when Death Battle uses sprite animation, it comes off as lazy. Because yeah, sure, there are some characters that don't have 3D models, but when you're Screw Attack, you have the resources and manpower necessary to make 3D models, or hire a department that actually could create 3D models. So I know I harp on this a lot, but it really is disappointing, because as good as this episode was, it would have benefited so much more from a 3D fight, and while everything else was good for the most part, the issue is here, the main event of Death Battle is always the fight. And if the fight sucks, then that can really be a downer, because the fight is the main event. Yeah, sure, the analysis and results is equally as important, and they did do a good job here, and I will give credit where credit is due. However, though, I just can't help but to be disappointed by some of the other aspects, especially the comedy. Now, while the back and forth banter between Aang and Edward was pretty good, and it definitely felt in character for both of them, even though I admit I don't know fuck all about Edward, from what I do know about him, it seemed like both characters were in character, and they did have a good back and forth. However, the jokes between Wiz and Boomstick in this episode were a little bit irritating, and I do wish they would cut back on the jokes a little bit, because it can be a little bit frustrating when the analysis has to be brought to a dead halt just so Boomstick can make a really shitty joke. Please guys, just cut back on the jokes a little bit and upgrade your technology so you can possibly make 3D models and put out 3D fights more consistently, and I'll be a lot happier. And as for the results, pretty accurate. I have no issue with the results, although I do have issue with the matchup. While it's not as bad of a mismatch as other fights, it's easy to tell that Edward had very little chance here, and apparently the reasons for why these two are fighting is because they both come from universes where manipulating the elements and nature is their thing, which I guess is fine, sure. I'll take it. It's fair enough. I don't know who else you would have had these two fight that would have made sense, so sure, I'll take it. And overall, this is a pretty good episode. I won't lie, I would actually recommend that you all check this episode out and give them a little bit of love, at least until they fuck up again and we go back to hating their guts. But for now, they did do a good job, and my final rating for this would be a 7 out of 10. It's actually a pretty good episode, the analysis is good, and the back and forth between the characters is good. The matchup could have been better, I will admit, but overall, there is more positives than negatives here. My only main gripe is just the fight. I wish the animation could have been better, because there are genuinely parts of this fight that do really look ugly and take me out of it. And I do wish they could have done a little bit more with the soundtrack, or at least incorporate a little bit more of the Avatar soundtrack. And speaking of the jokes, the fact that they fucked up the infamous My Cabbages joke was a little bit irritating. You couldn't have just ripped a soundbite from the cartoon itself of him saying My Cabbages. Even Nostalgia Critic thought to do that. It seems to me that would have been a very easy solution rather than trying to recreate it with your own voice actors, because it just wasn't as funny, and I felt like that should have been an easy one for you, Death Battle. But overall, good episode, check it out. Now, rather this is redemption, time will only tell. And as for the next Death Battle, I am actually extremely excited because they're finally doing Ghost Rider, my all-time favorite superhero. So I'll definitely have a lot to say about that one. However, I can't decide whether I'm happy about this matchup or irritated. But I'll save that for my prediction video of Ghost Rider vs. Lobo, where I will have a lot to say. So what did you all think? Was this a good episode? Do you think Death Battle finally did something right? Or do you think maybe I'm being a little bit too generous and Death Battle is still a bunch of fucktards? Let me know what you think in the comments about this episode, and I'll see you guys around next time.